Hey, hey, hey! Welcome to my cozy corner of the internet. This is Nephilim VA bringing you the 11th chapter of You Either Die a Villain or See Yourself Become a Hero, written by FantasyFreak_2 on AO3. Villain AUs are my beloved, so we must heed the trigger warnings before we proceed. This fanfiction is for mature audiences with canon-typical violence and a trigger warning for abuse, suicide, murder, bullying, and discrimination. If that isn't your style, then I recommend Shades of Green, which is written by Maybe It's Friendly on AO3. It can be found on my channel! Canon Divergence is the name of the game, with this tale of Class 1A being a class specifically for rehabilitating villains in the making. With that being said, the chapter summary is as followed. Bakugo, Jiro, and Izuku confess why they ended up in the A class and finally get some closure. Now I implore you to sit back and relax whilst I read to you. Chapter 11. Confessions 1. As Aizawa promised, there was an extra training session at the end of the school day for Shinso and Izuku since they had the most problems in keeping up with their classmates. Since their costumes weren't ready yet, Aizawa gave his own capture weapon to Shinso to train with, or more often get tangled up himself with, although it was clear he already trained using it at home since he wasn't completely hopeless. Aizawa had also looked at Izuku's description of his hero costume and had bought Snipe to help him. While Shinso was beaten up in the background, Izuku and Snipe had a discussion about his costume choices. "So, you want to use guns?" Snipe asked. "Why?" Izuku shrugged. "It's the greatest equalizer you can easily carry around. It doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, weak, strong, athletic. Even most quirks don't make a difference once you have a gun in your hand. I'm born small, not very naturally muscular, and most notably, quirkless. I have to compensate for every single one of those weaknesses, and no matter how much I train my body, I will never be on the same level as Kachan, for example. So using weapons that can help level the ground it is." "Good. I feared you wanted to use them just because you thought they were cool." Izuku raised his eyebrow. "Do many students want them because they think they look cool?" Snipe sighed. "You have no idea. Sometimes I really hate Hollywood movies, especially those western with cowboys which play in a time where quirks didn't exist. They romanticize guns quite a bit." Izuku thought back to the few westerns he had seen. He always preferred superhero-themed movies and documentaries, and had to smile. To be fair, guns are kinda cool in those movies. Snipe shook his head. "You are aware that as a hero you're not allowed to have actual bullets under any circumstance. They are reserved for the police, and even they have to use them very, very rarely. Mostly they rely on martial arts training, striking weapons, or heroes to come. A hero that uses a weapon that is so inevitably lethal would be bad for publicity." "But aren't Kachan's explosions just as lethal as a gun?" Snipe cocked his head. "I don't know your friend or his quirk, but did you ever saw him seriously injure a person with it?" "No. Even when he's angry, he can control it pretty good." "Then his quirk isn't as lethal as a real gun." Izuku nodded. "Okay, I get that. And honestly, I don't want bullets anyway. I don't want to hurt people if I can help it, and stray bullets can easily hit bystanders. Plus, bullets are a very unimaginative way to use guns considering what cool stuff the support department can put into hero costumes nowadays." "So according to Eraser, you decided on several different guns with different abilities?" "Yes." "Well then, the most important thing for you right now is to learn how to aim." Snipe said. "It'll be slightly different with every gun, but once you get the basics down, you'll be able to transfer your knowledge. Do you have any training?" "I managed to get into some training courses for guns since I knew I wanted to use them in my hero costume if I ever got the chance," Izuku answered, "but it isn't easy to get into them, especially as a teenager, and they are expensive. I think they only let me in because I told them I'm quirkless, and they wanted to help me get some self-confidence in my safety." "That's better than I hoped for. I assembled some targets for you to shoot at, and I bought a few different guns so you could train. Let's start." All things considered, Izuku wasn't half bad at shooting. To be fair, it isn't so hard to shoot a gun. As he said, it was quite a good equalizer. Even untrained, you can hit someone that is close to you if you are desperate enough to use a gun. You might not kill your target, but wound it enough to escape yourself. Izuku managed, with Snipe's help, to elevate his skill from hitting someone on some part of their body when attacked in close combat to hitting someone where he wants them to be hit if he is attacked in close combat. But he hadn't managed to master the real skill to be able to accurately shoot a gun at a distance by a long shot. Still, Snipe seemed very satisfied with his progress. "You have a lot of talent of keeping your hands steady and your brain working under pressure. That will help you a great deal in a fight with a gun. Some more training and one day you'll maybe match me with a gun." Izuku was basically beaming as he went back to the dorm with a far more sullen Shinso, who was covered in bruises. "That is unfair," Shinso complained. "Why do you get to shoot some guns while I have to roll around in the dirt and get hit by Sensei?" "Because I chose a cleverer weapon than you," Izuku answered cheerily. The smile dropped from his face as they entered their dorm and saw the fight in front of their eyes. It was a big chaos of ice, fire, explosions, and a shouting Ida that was desperately trying to get in between Kachan and Todoroki. Their other classmates surrounded the fight but seemed uncertain of getting involved in the chaos. Izuku immediately analysed his surroundings to find something that could be used to stop his classmates, but he knew they were basically forces of nature, and nothing he saw seemed stable enough. But Shinso next to him already knew the solution and shouted, "Hey, what do you two idiots think you're doing?" "Keep out of it!" Kachan shouted, and Izuku saw the moment he realised his mistake and turned to look at Shinso, but it was already too late. "Kachan, get back from Todoroki and stand still," Shinso ordered. With an empty gaze in his eyes, Kachan stepped away from Todoroki, who didn't seem inclined to further escalate, which led Izuku to the assumption that Kachan had started the fight. "Okay, now that everyone has calmed down, could someone explain what happened?" Izuku tried to de-escalate. "Bakugo just came from his first therapy session," Todoroki answered as monotone as if he wasn't just involved in a full-on fight. "And he stormed in while we were cooking and started shouting about it. He said that the therapist was an idiot and didn't know what he was talking about, that he wasn't wrong about what he did and he didn't belong here. I told him he should just accept that he did something terrible and move on like the rest of us or just leave. He said that maybe he should leave, and I told him that would probably be a relief for the rest of us, who at least tried to be good people. I'm not sure who threw the first punch, but here we are." "Okay," Izuku nodded. "Shinso, could you release Kachan so he can give his side of the story?" Shinso snorted as if to say that Kachan's side of the story wasn't worth being heard, but nodded reluctantly. Kachan's eyes gained their usual spark, but he didn't move from the spot. Instead, he folded his arms and glared at Todoroki. "He misunderstood. I told him I wasn't any more wrong in my actions than everyone else." Kirishima, who stood relatively close to Kachan, raised his hand. Sorry, but where is the difference?" Sounds to me like a more philosophical way of saying you weren't wrong. Karchan laughed, humorlessly. Do you know why I'm here, shitty hair? No. I'm here because I nearly killed Deku. The silence in the room was deafening, but Karchan didn't seem to care. I have been bullying him for years, starting when he found out he was quirkless. Everyone around me told me how great I was for having an amazing quirk, how much things I'll be able to achieve. It was always about my quirk, never about my determination or good grades. Not that I had bad grades, but when I got them I was praised. When Deku got them, well, I got in my head that a quirk is all that makes you a real human in society's eyes. And you know what? He grinned, showing his teeth. I was right. When I lost control after Deku said he wanted to go to UA, the school that I belonged at, my birthright. When I started beating him, they all just cheered. Even the teachers didn't care. And afterwards, after they detained me, people visited me in prison or wrote letters about how unfair it was, and that I was kept away from my bright future because of a quirkless nobody. Karchan stood there for a few seconds, where nobody said anything. Then he seemed to get his anger back, and he took the living room table they usually ate at and threw it against the next wall. Nobody stopped him, and Karchan screamed, frustrated. I nearly killed an innocent kid, my best friend since childhood, and they told me it was unfair I was punished. How am I the one in the wrong here? At least I regretted it. At least I was able to see what a horrible, terrible person I was. All Hound Dog was talking about was how I can better myself, redeem myself by becoming a hero. But how is it bettering myself if I work for the people that cheered when Deku was nearly killed? Why should I risk my life to save people that would rather see my best friend dead? All my life I wanted to, was told to, become the best hero in the world, and now? He seemed to sink into himself, his arms wrapped around his body as if trying to hold himself together. Now, I don't know if I deserve it, even if I want it. Nobody seemed to want to break the silence after that. Even Izuku didn't know what to think. He had admired, hated, loved Karchan for so long. Karchan who never seemed to waver. Until now. After what seemed like hours, astonishingly, it was Jiro who spoke up. I didn't download music illegally. Again, it was silent until Denki said what they all thought. Eh? What? Jiro laughed woodenly. I told you I was here because I downloaded music illegally. I didn't. Let's be honest, nobody believed that either. I hacked into secret files and sold them to the highest bidder. Of course, I knew it was wrong, but I was poor and hungry, and my parents were musicians. There is simply no money in that. Well, one day I got information where a rich owner of a tech company was living with his family, and I sold it to his competition. I thought they would send paparazzi to discredit him or spies to steal his tech secrets. She swallowed hard. A paid killer broke into their house and killed his wife. He was apprehended before he could kill him or his daughter, but at least... But I had to go forward with what I knew. I couldn't let them get away with it, so I went to the police. Jiro smiled bitterly. How did that end for me? Well, I'm here, and the rich guy who ordered the execution got away with a fine because there was no proof he personally did it. Someone from his company took the fall for him, and he'll continue to be a terrible human being. Jiro looked at Karchan and shrugged. It's not the same, I know. I didn't know what they were gonna do with the information and nobody was telling me to do it, but in the end we both did terrible things, and once we become heroes, we work for people like that rich asshole. People that belong in prison. But, you can't change the world from a prison cell. You can change it by being out there in public, like All Might or Present Mike. They shape the opinions of the world, and that is why I want to become a hero. The words tumbled out of Izuku's mouth before he even knew he was speaking. I blew up the school because they wouldn't stop talking about how it was my fault. After Kachan was arrested, everyone in the hallways and the breaks, they kept staring at me and talking behind my back about how it was my fault, how I shouldn't be there, how without me, Kachan would have become the greatest hero of all time. Izuku's nails sunk into his hands hard enough to draw blood. After he attacked me, nearly killed me, all they talked about was how it was my fault. I just wanted them to stop, to know how it felt. At first, I honestly considered on blowing up the school while they were still in there. Every student and teacher that talked bad about me. But I couldn't. I didn't want to become a murderer for them, and there were still good people there who didn't deserve it. Izuku looked at Kachan, who still stood there with his arms around himself, looking at the ground. I can't say I forgive you, because I don't. I'm not sure I will ever do. But I understand. And no matter if it's healthy or not, I don't think I could ever give you up, Kachan. Kachan's shoulders shook. I know. Me too. Again, there was a silence until Uraraka spoke up. I wanted to keep that to myself, but considering what is happening here, I managed to break into the kitchen and steal a bunch of alcohol, so who is up for getting drunk? Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate all the support you've given me. This was a more emotional chapter than I expected, but it was a nice insight into the minds of these quote-unquote villains. I'm not going to lie and say I had an easy week, but I'm hoping that now spring has sprung, that things will become a little bit brighter. All credits go to the original creator of this fanfiction, FancyFreak_2 on AO3. I would highly appreciate it if you gave this video a like and you subscribe to the channel, and you hit the notification bell to be notified of when I next upload. There is no pressure to do so though. Thank you for visiting my cozy corner of the internet. Keep growing my sunflowers. Mwah.